Today I'm going to talk about my first impressions and the reason why I've purchased the 35mm f1.4 Art Series lens from Sigma. Hi, my name's Matt Smart and I'm a photographer and I make videos to help you improve your photography skills and not make the same mistakes that I have made. Today I want to talk to you about the Sigma 35mm 1.4 Art Series lens, a few of my first impressions, but first I wanted to discuss with you the reasons why I have decided to opt for this lens. Now, I have literally taken ownership of this lens today. Today it was delivered. So this is not a review, it is just first impressions. But I want to talk about why I've done this, why I've made this choice. Okay, so about 2 to 3 years ago, I really started to understand the value of having lighter kit. Now, 2 or 3 years ago, probably more 3 years ago, I was just doing wedding photography. And wedding photography, for those of you who know, and for those of you who are trying to get into it, need to know, it's not easy with all the kit that you have, especially at the beginning, because you really want to make sure that you're absolutely geared up for every single scenario possible. So you've got flash, you've got light poles, you've got umbrellas, you've got a 70 to 200, a 24 to 70, a 50mm, 2 camera bodies, you've got batteries, absolutely everything, and quite rightly so, you need a lot of that gear with you. But right in my early days, I had all of that equipment on my back, and as I evolved my kind of journey, I started carrying 2 bodies with me. One of them was a crop sensor with a 24 to 70mm, this one lens on, which gave me a quite nice mid-range zoom, and the full frame camera had a 70 to 200 on, which, well, does exactly what it says on the tin. And then for when I was doing the photos in the hotel in the morning, getting ready shots and what have you, I'd have my 50mm. Now, when I started to do more event photography, I was just carrying the 70 to 200 with one body, and I really valued that, how it's so much lighter just running around like that. And I started to realise, actually, I think I could do this in my wedding photography more and more and more. So I started to just trust my 24 to 70. I did scrimp and I did go for the f4 version of this lens. I'm not saying it was a bad decision, it was the right decision for me at the time. It was a lot of money to go for the 2.8, but this has seen me through some serious amount of weddings and events, and it is a really good lens. However, what I really needed to do was cut down on the amount that I was carrying, and for the last few years I've been researching and check out one of my other videos about making that choice before you go off and splurge loads of money on gear. Make sure that you get the right one, and I have been hankering for the 35mm, and here it is. So this is the lens that I've opted for. So why specifically the 35? Well, it's actually a no-brainer when you start to look at some of the statistics that Lightroom give you, and if you start to look at some of the data in there about some of the photos that you take, you can start to understand the focal length that you seem to often use. So I checked out, I'm not going to go into boring detail, but I checked out all the metadata from the lenses, and I found that the majority of the time, the better photos that I was taking, the more storytelling photos, was taken with quite a wide aperture, usually between 24 and about 40. Now, 35mm is a very good lens on a full frame camera for that natural field of view. It's also great on a crop factor, because on a cropped lens, cropped sensor, because the great thing is it comes out at about 56mm on a Canon. Now, that's really important because if you do use a cropped sensor and a full frame, you've got yourself one lens, but you've actually got two. So you've got yourself a 35mm and almost a 50. So it's actually quite versatile to do it in that way. But I'd noticed that I was using a lot between 25 and 40. So I thought 35mm would be the way to go. Now, why did I opt for the 1.4 and why specifically the Sigma? Well, because one, the raving reviews that this lens has had. It's absolutely been, you know, stuck right up there with a lot of the other professional gear as being, you know, one of the best lenses to have. And it is, by, you know, all standards, a very, very highly sought after lens. Now, why did I specifically want that one? Well, I needed the speed because low light performance 1.4, and I also needed the sharpness because obviously, you know, wedding photography, you're being paid, you know, to do that, to get, you know, really sharp images, and you want it to deliver every single time. The 24-70 has delivered that for me every single time. Just for me, it just doesn't match my style with the whole ethereal, blurry background. You don't really get that so much with this lens. So what I opted for was to use my 1.4 Canon. Now, I did run around quite a few weddings, probably the last 15 or 20 weddings where I've only used this lens for much of the day, and I have had my bag over my shoulder with this just in case, and I've used it probably 3 or 4 times out of those, like, you know, all of those weddings, and it was kind of, I shouldn't have had to have done that. If I'd have had this lens, it would never have been a problem at all. So the pro is obviously the, you know, the speed of this lens and, you know, the sharpness of it. You know, but I've got to say, it is a heavy lens. But when you compare it to the fact that I'm now no longer carrying these two and I've got just this one, I'm already coming down in the weight, aren't I? Now, these will still come with me. I will never stop using them. You know, they will always be with me. But the one lens that I will always keep in my camera bag is my 70-200, because that's just great for, you know, those really intimate shots where you don't want to get too close, because the 35mm lens is obviously very wide. Well, it's medium wide field of view, and you know, you have to get close in order to, you know, tell the story. And the 70-200, which again is actually another Sigma lens, so I'm actually leaning more towards the Sigma range. Who'd have thought it? So I've got the two Sigmas. I've got a 70-200 and a 35mm. I've got 2 Canon lenses, which is my 50mm and my 24-70. And I'm, you know, we've got the Holy Trinity and +1. They will all go with me. But I just wanted to give you those kind of reasons as to why I've gone down that route, really. First impressions of this, well, I haven't used it all that much, but, you know, holding it, reviews do say that it is heavy. It does feel heavy. I have put it on my camera body and it does feel heavy, but I am weighing it up with the fact that I'm no longer going to be carrying a 24-70 and a 50mm. So hopefully that will negate that. The build quality of this lens, compared to, now this Sigma lens is the one prior to the existing 70-200 sports series. This is the older one. Now, before they went through that whole rebrand of changing the look and feel, if you compare the two, it does feel a lot more polished. It does feel a lot more professional. The metal feels of a higher quality. This matte finish on this makes it feel a little bit kind of substandard-ish. It's still a really, you know, really good lens. It's not as sharp as I'd like it to be. It's a little bit soft at 2.8, but, you know, you can get that sharpness back in post. This, on the other hand, I'm hoping. Now, I have heard reviews where I might have to order myself the dock for this to go into. I'm not entirely sure yet. I will find out in the next few days whether that's going to be true or not. If you don't know what I'm talking about, essentially with the 35mm, it has been known where people's copies of this lens hasn't been calibrated to the camera that you own. Now, apparently Sigma have got quite high tolerances in their focusing, so what will happen is you might find that the lens forward or rear focuses on the subject. Now, it's a bit of a pain in the arse, however, when you're using professional kit, you should just do it anyway. It's it's a non-negotiable for me. I'm quite happy to do that. The only thing that you got to consider is an extra 40 quid for the dock that you might need in order to do that. I don't know yet if I need to do that. I'm going to do a few tests. So this is the first video in a series of 3, I'm hoping. So this is the why and my first impression. The second video will be a review of the images. So hopefully we can go through that process of whether I've gone through refocusing the lens and calibrating it. But then the third video, which I'm hoping to do as soon as lockdown's over, is get a review post-wedding day, because this has come during lockdown. Yes, I've got a bit of bit of gear acquisition syndrome, but I've got this lens. I'm going to take it out with me to get some photographs out on a nice walk. But once I've done that wedding, I'm going to report back and let you guys know exactly how well it went for me, or how well it didn't go. But I'm hoping, that it does go really well for me. If you've got any experiences with this lens yourself, please let me know about them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. If you've got any questions, or if you've got anything you want me to test out, leave questions or comments below, and I will happily answer those best I can. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.